I know this video is going to be a little bit long, but by the end of it, you're going to have the knowledge that you need to start this hobby confidently and with success right away. Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of The World's Worst Fishing. I'm your host, Chris Jones. Thanks for being here today and tuning in. So recently, I've been seeing a lot of questions out in the bait universe, okay? I kind of keep, abreast of, the goings-ons, I guess, in the soft bait making community, whether it be, on video platforms like here on YouTube, Facebook, groups, self-help groups, they're essentially forums these days, even TikTok, Instagram, right? So I see a lot of the new bait making generation coming in and some of the questions that they have. And as an old veteran now who's done quite a bit of content about how to start, right, the guide to making baits, tips for beginners, I thought it was time for a refresher course, but this one's going to be geared more towards kind of what to expect when you begin this journey, right? Let's say you want to get into soft bait making. Maybe you've watched some of my videos, maybe you've joined a page, right, and gathered some information, but you haven't quite started yet. It always helps for someone to break it down on video and show you this is normal, you're going to encounter this, you need to know this information, this is not normal, this is when you've made a mistake, but these other things that you'll encounter are perfectly normal. So this is going to be sort of what to expect as a beginner bait maker. And some of the questions I see out there, I'm like, oh no, like these people just have not very good direction on this. So we're going to do our part to try and help with that today. Okay, I figured we would start with some basic nomenclature here, because one thing that you're going to need to at least be, generally aware of is what types of materials you're going to encounter, particularly when you're trying to put a budget together or start shopping to begin this hobby. Mold selection and materials and all the tools, it's very overwhelming if you're not pretty familiar with it. So let's start, as you can see here, with molds and injectors, okay? You have two different camps, okay, of CNC aluminum molds. You have injection molds, and then you have what we call open pouring or hand pouring. As you can see, there's a few different styles of each. So what are we really looking at here, okay? One of the common things that you will encounter is top port, single port injection, okay? And you're gonna see what I mean by that right away. You have one injection opening per bait, right? So in the mold world, we call these cavities. So this is a 4-cavity Angling AI riprap mold, okay? So for each bait, you have to inject one shot each, and you get one cavity out of it, all right? So that is one style of injection mold. Another style of injection mold, and these are much more common, is this one right here, okay? You have one injection port, okay, this is a frog mold. One injection port that feeds multiple cavities all running one way. We have the sprue opening, the runner, the gates that feed the cavities, okay, all on one side of the mold. Okay, different style injection molds, maybe a little bit higher cavity count. Let's get this open real fast. You'll see the injection port is in the center, okay? All right, so this one, now we have bait cavities on either side, okay? Sprue opening, runner, and then gates on either side feeding plastic both left and right, okay? So those are really the most basic, well, not necessarily the most basic, but the most common injection style molds you will encounter. So no matter which type of injection mold you might wind up with, and it's purely just your subjective choice, there's no right or wrong way, right, or orientation. All of these orientations are very common. It just kind of comes down to how the mold maker wants to make the cavities and orient the cavities in the mold to give you what they feel like is the best mold in terms of, filling in, shooting, right, consistency, all of the things, okay? So no matter which style of these you wind up with, you're going to need an injector, which is a giant aluminum syringe, okay? And that's essentially all an injector is. It's how you draw up the Plastisol material, you fit the nozzle in it, and then you push, okay? And we will demonstrate that you know, very in-depth later on. Over here, we have open pour style aluminum molds, okay? So you can see we have some single plate open pour worm molds. Pretty self-explanatory. I'm taking a Pyrex cup of plastic and I have to pour it by hand into these molds. Very tedious, takes a lot of practice, but we've done a lot of hand pouring on this channel and you can take this to the extreme, okay? So these are what's called single plate open pour molds, all right? Now here's an example of a two-piece open pour mold. You still are pouring the plastic in by hand, but as you can see now there are two sides to this, okay? So it closes up, oops, you would think I'd never done this, right? Got a little hook slot insert. Closes up two pieces, two sides of the plate, but as you can see, it's open on the top. So again, you're hand pouring, all right? So these are all open pour hand pouring molds, and they require a very different process, right? But you have to be aware of what style molds you're looking at whenever you're shopping. That way you know what process you will be expecting whenever you receive these materials. So you don't ever want to accidentally buy this when you're expecting this. All right, so one thing I wanted to touch on in sort of the spirit of today's video, guys, there has never been a better time to start, right? This just sort of kind of happened this week. This video was not planned around this, but Angling AI just released a amazing premium injection starter kit. Okay, look at what all we have here. We have a gallon of Plastisol, right? We have an injection mold. We have a premium insulated injector. We have several colors, glitters, even a Pyrex cup and a thermometer, which you'll see later in this video, all included right here. And so the obvious question that a lot of people have whenever they see videos like this is, hey, instead of sourcing all these materials right individually, is there a good starter kit available, Chris? And now there's a fantastic one. There have been some good ones in the past. AI and Dead On Plastics collaborated on a smaller starter kit, so they do have another option. But this one right here, in terms of just one-stop shop, $300, you're in, and this'll tell you right away if you like this or not. You can do a lot with the colors and glitters there, and so once you do that, that's your cookie. You're gonna want a glass of milk. So that's what the rest of this video is for. Real quickly, again, just staying on injectors real fast, you have two main styles of hand injectors. These are all known as hand injectors because they're operated manually, okay? You have your single injector for single colors, and then look at this contraption. Now we have two injectors that are kind of, you know, flush mounted together. And what this allows us to do is force the plastic through this little contraption here called a blending block, okay? And it's very simple. It takes color A and color B, forces them through one nozzle, sort of marries them together, okay? That is how you achieve what is known as a laminate. Let's take a closer look. You can see this little crawl mold here. We have one top that's sort of a brownish green pumpkin with some blue flake. Then the bottom, we have this orange with looks like some small orange flake and some black flake, okay? That is how we get that two color effect, is from dual injection. Now there are triple injectors and different style of injectors for other injection systems like shooting stars, but this is what you are the most likely to encounter as a beginner. You're going to be shopping for hand injectors, either single or dual kits, okay? And a dual kit comes with the dual injector and the blending block. That's what you want to keep in mind. Welcome to my color spread. So the other big thing, aside from Plastisol, which we will get to, are colorants, okay? And as you can see, there are a lot of different things that you can mix into your plastic these days to color a bait. So the most common type is going to be your liquid colorants made for soft plastic baits. And they kind of come in two camps, okay? We have liquid pigment base and liquid dye base, okay? Now I just recently did a video showing liquid pigment and dyes going head to head, sort of the pros and cons, do's and don'ts of the two. Your two main camps are liquid pigments, liquid dyes. That's what 90% of all your colors are they're using some sort of base liquid colorant, okay? Now things get a little more complicated. Now we get into powders. We have some regular mica powder, okay? Just blue pearl, right? I've had this little can of blue powder for a long time. This is straight regular blue mica powder. It does color the plastic. However, this one right here is also a blue colorant powder. But how can that be, right? Because it's white. Well, this one's called Mica Shift here from 8-bit, but what it really is known as an interference powder, okay? Let's get a little bit. See how it's got a little bit of a blue? I'm not trying to shoot y'all a bird. It's got a little bit of a blue hint to it. This will give your plastic a nice blue reflective look without actually coloring the plastic. It's almost like magic, okay? So we have regular micas, and then we have interference, okay? And then we get into color shift powders, right? And there's a lot of different color shifts out there. This is by Dead On Plastics right here, okay? Look how brilliant that is. Okay, this is called Dead Shift. Okay, so that is a very, very great entry pricing color shift, or the Dead Shift powders from Dead On Plastics. Phenomenal stuff. Even with access to all of the really expensive high-end powders, I still use a ton of Dead Shift powders. They are fantastic. All right, moving on up, we go to Hyper Shift, and I've had this a while, which is why it looks a little worn out. Okay, but these are extreme high-end color shift powders. Look at that. They're very common in the automotive world. Okay, I mean, isn't that cool? There's just really no alternative for them, and so that is a true hyper shift. Okay, but then we have this over here. This is called a hollow shift, right? It's of the same tier as the hyper shift. It might chemically be a little different. I think this is all borosilicate stuff, right? But it has a little bit of a holographical effect to it, or a hologram effect, right? So there's just a few different properties going on here. But those are essentially most of the powders that you're going to see. Well, excuse me, all the different style colors, okay? So you need to know if you're looking at regular pearls and mica, or if you're looking at highlights, also known as interference, or are you looking at dead shifts or color shifts, right? Are you looking at hyper shifts from places like Dip Your Car, KP Pigments, or are you looking at some of the hollow shift line, also from 8-bit baits? You don't want to be confused on what you're buying. Moving on, Plastisol. You can see written right there on the lid, mix well. So what we have here today is a fresh, never before opened. That is literally first crack of the lid. 5-gallon bucket of Plastisol, okay? This is Dead On Plastics Craw Tube Blend. All right, for a 5-gallon bucket, we have a giant paint stirrer on the end of a drill. Watch this right here. I'm just gonna show it to you in real time. I'm not gonna cut or speed up or slow down the footage. Watch this. We are now mixing the resin ratio up with the plasticizer oil. You can see that white milky stuff starting to come to the surface. Okay, Plastisol is a delicate balance of PVC plasticizer and, plasticizer oils and flexible PVC resins. Okay, and that is essentially what we're doing here. Is a fresh bucket of plastic, right? It has not been mixed since it was pumped out of the drum into this bucket. So we have to really do a thorough mixing, all right? And this is where a lot of people go wrong. They don't mix enough, okay? We really want to mix up all the layers of this bucket, right? So we're going to mix a little bit right here at the top and then all the way down to the bottom. Go all the way down. We're going to mix in the middle, right? All the way up again, all the way back down, all right? I like to sort of vary my mixing throughout the different layers of the volume. All right, I don't only want to mix on the bottom, I also want to mix really thoroughly up here at the top, because the top is where most of the of the plasticizer oils were, and I really want to make sure I get the resins mixed up top. All right. Now, we don't want to go crazy and mix too many bubbles in it, but we have to mix it thoroughly. Same goes for when you're using a gallon jug, right? This is also very important. A lot of people, they don't mix their jugs enough, okay? So we can talk about that here in just a moment. But essentially that's it. We are done. 2 minutes. Okay, suppose you are using plastic out of the gallon jug, okay? Maybe you bought the starter kit, or maybe you sourced, you know, 2 or 3 different gallons of plastic to start with, right? Because plastic comes in different durometers, different types, right? You have red label from Dead On Plastics, you have black label. They have very different plasticizer oil bases. Some have phthalates, some don't. Some are really soft, some are really hard, right? So they make different plastics for different uses in different situations. So you might not always only just be using 1 gallon for everything. However, the same thing kind of rings true for all of them. You got to shake it up, right? Don't be afraid to shake your gallon jug. A lot of people get really scared of bubbles. You know, whenever they really shake their plastic up, you got to remember, bubbles that you shake into the plastic are different than micro bubbles coming out of the plasticizers from moisture, okay? 2 very different things. One is easily solved, right? These bubbles will work themselves out. Micro bubbles, a little bit more difficult, okay? So you really got to shake it up because you have to mix up the resins and the plasticizer ratio. So failure to do this, right, will result in your plastic being tacky, sticky, gummy. It's never going to cure up, and it's never going to give you the properties and the action of a real bait. And something I saw recently, a brand new bait maker asked the question on one of the Facebook groups. He said, I just started making baits, I mixed my plastic, and then came back the next day, and now my baits won't set up, right? I think he was under the assumption that once you get your plastic, you mix it up once, whether it's in the gallon jug or the 5-gallon bucket, and then you don't have to mix it again, which I'm not sure where he got that, but no, every time you come out here, you must follow this process, okay? I try to mix my plastic daily, particularly in the 5-gallon buckets. Even if I came out here in the morning, right, and made some baits, and then maybe I come back later that evening, you know, if 5, 6, 7 hours have passed, I'm going to need to mix my plastic again, okay? It does settle out pretty quickly. So each time you come out here, you want to get into the habit of shaking up your plastic, okay? Because if you do not mix, it's never going to work. We have mixed our plastic, measured it out in a cup, okay? So these are just regular Pyrex cups. This is the most common way. And we are ready to make that first bait, okay? So one of the things that you're going to learn is how your microwave likes to cook plastic. This is a pretty small, weak microwave. I think it's only like 750 watts, whatever. So a full 1 cup size, I need to start at about 3 minutes. All right, and like I said, different strength microwaves will cook either faster or slower. So this is something I can't really tell you exactly how to do, but the best practice is to just start slow, cook in 1 minute increments until your plastic starts to look like clear jelly, okay? And I'll show you exactly what I mean by that as soon as this comes out. Okay, so a clear jelly, right? Remember what I said? So here is plastic that is now partially cooked, okay? So the top, right, looks very runny, but the bottom still a little white and gooey, okay? So if we scrape the bottom, we can see there's still a little bit of kind of more set up jelly, right? See that? Kind of looks like a jellyfish. So this plastic is still what we call in gel phase, okay? So it's partially cooked, except the bottom of a Pyrex cup always cooks last, okay? At least in my microwave, the top of the cup always has gone through gel phase first, okay? So we want to thoroughly mix up that bottom layer, just like we're mixing the bucket earlier, okay? We want to get the contents of the bottom of the cup mixed up. That way we can cook the entire cup all the way through gel phase, okay? And conversion temp, when you're done with this jelly phase, is 350 degrees internal, and that's using Fahrenheit, okay? So we're not quite there. I need maybe another 30-40 seconds in the microwave. All right, we're back. Let's take an internal temp. This might take a minute. So again, we want to try to take a reading that's down into the cup, not just a surface reading. Okay? Don't think we're there yet. We're at 310. Right, so internal needs to be 350. However, it only needs to reach 350 one time. Once your Plastisol is chemically converted, you're done. Okay, so what I mean by that is what you want to expect to see is 350 for that first reading. Okay, that first reading that gets you through gel phase over to conversion. You don't need to keep heating it to 350. We might. Oh, look at that. Are we going to be a few degrees short? Oh, come on, 340, 348. Okay, so we're basically there. So in this situation, I would just give it another quick little stir, all right? And then maybe another 20, 25 seconds in the microwave, and then I know that I am confidently past conversion temperature. Okay, now we get to have some fun. Let's add some color. Dopamine. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we're going to be using that dopamine pigment that we showed you earlier. 35 drops of it, 2 drops of dead on blue. 1, 2 drops of chartreuse. This is sort of my favorite little dopamine recipe. All right. Now we get to kind of have the fun part, right? So let's stir in our color. Oh yeah, this is looking good. Sort of a nice green to blue purple. And yeah, it's always hard to show on camera. Isn't that nice? All right, so we're gonna mix that up really well, okay? Yeah, looking good there, all right? Then we're gonna add some flake. And keep in mind, okay, while you are building a color, okay, while you are stirring in and adding pigments and flakes, if you see bubbles show up, there's a few showing up, not many, but if you start to see some bubbles appear during this kind of color building process, don't panic, it's perfectly normal. Your plastic has already been through the microwave a few times, and which is hard on it and can cause bubbles to come out of the resins. Also, just the physical process of stirring in, particularly powders, which you have to really stir in violently to really stir them in. Yeah, sometimes you can get some bubbles, right? You can see some bubbles appearing right now, matter of fact. See those bubbles? Not a problem. Totally normal, totally expected. You have a couple of options. Wait for them to all rise to the top. Blast them out with just a little electric heat gun. It'll just pop them. Or you can let them rise, scoop them out with a spoon, or just send it. Okay, now we're ready for that first shot, okay? So we're gonna take our single injector, and essentially, we're gonna pull on the handle to draw up, and then push the handle back down to inject the mold. It's actually hard to fit all of that in frame because an injector is so tall, okay? So long. So, I'm gonna stick it in the plastic, we're gonna draw up. All right? Gonna move it on over to the injector port and push slow and steady. You can even sometimes just let the weight of your hand, or excuse me, the weight of your arm push on it. And a lot of people have questions right here. They're asking, when is the mold full? How do I know how hard to push, how long to push? You push slow and steady, and you will feel the mold fill up, okay? When that injector is done, it's done. You will feel the injector stop, and you just kind of want to hold light pressure on it. Don't force it. This is not an arm wrestling match. You're not trying to defeat your mold, and if you force it too hard, number one, it's dangerous, and number two, you can actually force plastic throughout the seams of the mold, which is called flashing. Okay, that first shot into that first mold is done. So, you're always going to need to cycle your injector through, okay? There's always going to be a little bit of plastic left right there on the nozzle, okay? And in the nozzle. So depending on what type of injector you have, you might have a little locking pin here, or this one right here, it just does like a little half turn, all right? Take your handle, push the rest of it out, okay? All right, and we inject it very slow here, okay? Push the rest out, and you're always going to have what's called a plug, okay? This particular injector, normally I get a much thinner plug. We kind of left a lot of plastic in there just to show you what a plug normally looks like. Okay, and the reason why I wanted to show you this is because this is totally normal and expected. You're always going to have to cycle what the leftover plastic in your injector was. Now what's cool is the leftovers from your injector and the leftovers in your cup, right? Because we only did that one mold, so look at all this leftover plastic. Well, what can I do with that? I can save it. Okay, this is now what's called a puck. All right, a leftover puck of plastic. That can be totally remelted at another time to give us brand new baits, okay? Drum roll, please. Let's see how our dopamine AR frogs came out. Oh, super cool. There we go. Very cool. It's sort of a slate green fading into that purple there. Yeah. I personally love frogs, so anytime I get a chance to make frogs for my own personal tackle box, I'm always down for that. And there we go. And just like that, you've now made your first baits. You are now a bait maker. Really nice. So one of the last things I want to touch on here is reusing your materials, okay? This is very common, and this is what a lot of people are going to want to do because, you know, you'll learn Plastisol, not cheap, molds, not cheap. So you don't want to miss out on opportunities to use your materials, right? Every little leftover piece of plastic here is opportunity to get more baits, right? More bang for your buck. And so all of these little leftover pieces of plastic, including what was left over in your cup, all need to be, reused, okay? And so the best way to do it is to just sort of cut them up, right? Cut them up into smaller pieces, okay? That's still a little hot on the inside. But yeah, remelt all of this, okay? Cut it up into little pieces, stick it back in the microwave, and we're not done yet. Okay, going back in. All right, so now we are no longer cooking raw Plastisol. Now we are remelting plastic that we've already converted. Okay, we remember earlier we got our Plastisol all the way up to 350 conversion temp. I don't need to get it that hot again. I just need to remelt this enough, okay, that I start getting workable plastic again. So I want to go slow, okay? I don't want to nuke this for 3 minutes again. I'll burn it up, okay? Because this has already been converted once. So you want to cut your plastic up, and you want to remelt, okay, in small increments. We're going to start with a minute, then maybe stir it a little bit, then another minute, and then maybe 30 seconds, then 30 seconds, then 10, heat it up slowly till there's no more solid chunks in it, and it's workable. Okay, there's after 1 minute. Look at that. You can see a little bit of it is now liquid again. All right. So what we want to do is we want to put on both gloves. It's always important to wear gloves. All right. You do not want to get burned by plastic. All right. And so we're just going to kind of stir up this molten jelly mess. Okay. All right. Best we can. All right. And we are on our way to a successful remelt. Okay, a little closer. All right, give that a stir. Still got a few solid chunks in there, as you can see, right? But we want to stir very, very thoroughly. Okay, get as much of those solid chunks mixed back in. Maybe get you a little closer. Yeah. Looking good overall, all right? This maybe only needs another 30 seconds total. Okay, and as you can see, there's plenty of bubbles showing up. Not a problem. Again, those are bubbles from agitation, the remelt process, all this stirring. Okay, these are not problematic bubbles at all. They'll rise to the top. If you don't like them, heat gun them away. If not, send it. It really doesn't matter. Okay, here we go. Just like that. All right, done. Done, done, and done. Alright, so we'll take this out, kind of refill the top, and boom, purge back into the cup. And another thing I wanted to touch on that is totally normal and to be expected is injector blowback, as it's called, okay? You can see these little pieces of plastic gummy, right? And it's going to be hard to show it, but as your injector plunger moves in and out, little fragments of plastic kind of get left over in the tube, right? And so they can be way on down in your tube, and it's called blowback. And so that is something that you kind of periodically have to clean out. You know, I like to just, you know, drop a little bit of worm oil in there and just cycle the plunger through. Again, totally normal. Your injector is not messed up. You're not doing it wrong. Sometimes you can even get a lot of plastic behind the plunger. It's just normal blowback, nothing to worry about. And now let's look at these new baits. There we go. Some nice dopamine frogs. Just like that. That's all there is to it, guys. So, you can do some incredible things with this hobby. Here are some sort of extreme hand-poured examples, you know, some very intricate layered, you know, swim baits there with, you know, hand-applied paints within the layers and different skin pouring, you know, hand-poured snakes and the open pour ribbon tail worms. It can get crazy. However, it all starts, just nudge the camera. It all starts with what we did today, right? One mold, one single hand injector, one color, right? It all starts right there at the basics. And so what I always encourage people do is go slow, learn your process, refine your process, learn your Plastisol, right? Different Plastisols have different properties and are made for different things. Some are very thick and viscous, right? Some set up very quick and dry and they're great for injection. Some stay thinner for a lot longer, set up slower. They're great for hand pouring. They give you added time of workable range. Some are non-phthalate, so I use exclusively the Dead On Plastics non-phthalate black sinking blend. I just like to be around a cleaner plastic, right? You have to ventilate your shop. You know, if you're in an unventilated area, you definitely need to be wearing a mask or a respirator, right? So these are all things that you really should focus on. Don't focus on trying to get crazy with it at first. Focus on refining your process because that's going to lead you to the most success and the least amount of waste. The last thing you want to do is jump into this and waste gallons of plastic, overcooking or undercooking, you know, because overcooking, you're going to burn it, it's going to scorch, it's going to discolor. Undercooking, it's going to be gooey, slimy, it's not going to work, right? Learn your process, learn your plastic. Every plastic's going to cook a little different. Its gel phase is going to last a little longer, a little shorter. It's going to be different. Same with colorants. Some bleed, some don't. Some are really concentrated, some are thinner. These are all little nuances that obviously I can't cover in one video, but I can make you aware of them. So even as extreme as it can get, it all starts exactly like we did today. That is what you should expect when you get into this hobby. All right, everybody, I think we're gonna stop there. There's a lot more we could get into, you know, the nuances of laminate injection, right, and how important temperatures are and viscosities for both sides of the color. We could get into open pouring. Oh my gosh, you know, how much we could go into there. But again, you know, the prompt of this video is what to expect when you're beginning, okay? So we kept it pretty simple. I basically did today exactly what I did the first time ever that I made baits. One tabletop, one microwave, one cup of plastic, one mold, one single injector. That's how we all start. I think very few of us begin with a shooting star and 40 molds lined up on a pneumatic vice clamp. That's not really what you're most likely to expect. So keeping with today's theme, what to expect, you know, you can expect pretty basic bait making, whether you buy, you know, a starter kit like the one we looked at earlier, or you source all of this individually. you know, you're gonna be starting slow, right? And you're gonna be making baits in small volume, small quantities, which means you're gonna be reheating and reusing, you know, those little single size cup Pyrex cups. You know, they make obviously bigger Pyrex cups. If you wanna cook larger volumes of plastic, you're most likely to start with the small stuff. And so today's video was just to hopefully answer some questions and just show the nuances and just show what really happens when you do this. You know, I've made a lot of content over the years. There's some other great bait making YouTubers making great content, and a lot of what we show is, you know, really edited and refined production. We're not necessarily sitting there going, okay, I just remelted and I'm restirring and now I got bubbles. Like, there's a lot of little nuances that I think people notice. You know, is this normal? Because you know, World's Worst Fishing, he didn't show that part last video. So this video is just kind of getting down to the nitty gritty, not editing out a lot of stuff, not really trying to make this look pretty in terms of a smooth flow, getting right to the colors, right to the technical side of it. This is just to show you, hey, here's what it's really like, and here's what it's really like your first time. So with that said, we're out of here. If you found this video helpful, please leave me a comment down below, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and we'll see you in the next one.